The morning sun burned through the thin mist rising from the forest floor, lighting up the steel fences of the wildlife training compound. Birds screeched in the distance, but inside the enclosure everyone stood silent. A dozen trainees watched from behind the safety line as the new instructor, Eli Turner, walked calmly into the containment zone. The gates shut behind him with a heavy metallic thud. "You sure about this, Turner?" called Dr. Hensley from the control booth, her voice trembling slightly through the speaker. "That cub isn't like the others. It's unpredictable." Eli didn't answer. He just adjusted his gloves and looked across the field, where a shadow moved among the tall grass. The creature crouched low, eyes glowing yellow even in daylight. It wasn't a normal animal. Its body was lean but strong, a mix between a lion and a wolf, with jet-black fur that shimmered like oil. This was the shadow fang, a rare apex predator species thought to be extinct. The cub was young, barely 6 months old, yet already large enough to kill. Eli took a slow step forward. "Easy there," he said softly, his voice steady but calm. "I'm not here to hurt you." The cub froze, muscles tightening, nostrils flaring. The air between them felt charged, like the moment before lightning struck. Behind the fence, the other trainers whispered nervously. "He's crazy," one muttered. "That thing tore through 2 handlers last week." Another whispered, "They say it doesn't fear fire or pain. It only attacks." Eli knelt slowly, keeping his gaze locked on the cub. "I know what you're feeling," he murmured. "Fear isn't weakness. It's instinct." His voice was calm, too calm. The cub tilted its head slightly, growling, testing him. Then without warning it leapt. The world blurred into chaos. The fence alarm blared, and shouts filled the air. "Trank team ready!" Dr. Hensley screamed, slamming the red button, but the cub was already midair, claws extended, jaws open wide. Eli didn't move. He just stood there, his eyes steady, his breath slow. The beast collided with him, and both crashed to the ground. Dust rose, and for a few seconds, no one could see what happened. The tranquilizer team aimed their rifles, waiting for the command. Then the dust cleared, and everyone froze. Eli was sitting on the ground, unharmed, while the cub was lying across his lap like a house cat, its chest rising and falling slowly. Its claws were retracted, its breathing calm. Eli's gloved hand rested gently on its back, and the cub purred softly, a sound no one in the facility had ever heard from a shadow fang. "Stand down," Eli said quietly. "Don't shoot." The guards hesitated, confused. "What did you do to it?" one asked. Eli looked down at the cub, his expression unreadable. "I didn't do anything, it just stopped." Dr. Hensley rushed in with her team, her lab coat flapping as she entered the enclosure. "Don't touch it!" she shouted, but the cub only tightened its grip around Eli's arm, its tail twitching gently. "This makes no sense," she muttered, scanning the readings on her handheld device. "Its heart rate is stable. No signs of aggression." She turned to Eli. "What did you say to it before it attacked?" Eli shrugged. "I didn't say much. Just told it I wasn't here to hurt it." The others looked at each other, whispering in disbelief. No one had ever calmed a shadowfang. The cub species was known for violence, not affection. As they watched, the cub looked up at Eli, blinked slowly and made a low humming sound, something between a growl and a sigh. "It's bonding," said one of the researchers in awe. "But that's impossible." Dr. Hensley frowned, shaking her head. "No, it's not bonding. It's reacting to something. Something familiar." Eli gently stroked the cub's fur. "Maybe it remembers," he said quietly. "Or maybe it just needed someone not afraid of it." The cub's golden eyes met his, and for a brief second, Eli saw something too human. Pain, loss, recognition. His breath caught. The moment felt strange, heavy, almost spiritual. "Get them separated," Dr. Hensley ordered sharply, trying to regain control. "We can't risk it imprinting on a human." But as 2 guards stepped closer, the cub suddenly growled, a deep, warning sound that made both men freeze. Its fur stood up, its eyes locked on them like twin suns. Eli raised his hand. "Stop. If you push it, it'll attack again." He spoke softly, never breaking eye contact with the cub. "It's okay," he whispered. "I'm not leaving." The cub slowly relaxed, lowering its head again, pressing its face against his chest. For the next few minutes, no one spoke. The only sound was the steady hum of the facility lights and the soft purring of a creature that wasn't supposed to feel peace. Finally, Dr. Hensley exhaled, lowering her tablet. "This changes everything," she whispered. "If a Shadowfang can form trust, maybe they're not what we thought." Eli didn't respond. He just kept petting the cub, his eyes distant. That night, after the others left, Eli stayed in the observation room, watching the video replay of the attack. Frame by frame, he studied the moment before impact. The cub's eyes had widened, not in rage, but in fear. "You weren't attacking," he murmured. "You were scared." He shut off the monitor and looked through the glass window at the cub sleeping in its enclosure, curled up tightly like a child. Something inside him shifted. "What are you trying to tell me?" he whispered. In the dark room, the monitors blinked softly. A final clip replayed on loop, the moment the apex predator lunged and then chose to rest in the human's lap. To some, it was luck. To others, a miracle. But to Eli, it felt like a message from something older than science. The wild didn't always attack out of hunger or hate. Sometimes it just wanted to be understood. And for the first time in that cold facility, man and beast had found peace, not through fear, but through something far more dangerous. Trust. The morning after the incident, the entire training facility buzzed with whispers. Everyone wanted to see the man who made the most dangerous cub in the world fall asleep on his lap. Cameras from nearby research divisions arrived, and security drones floated above the enclosure, capturing every angle. Eli stood quietly near the reinforced gate, waiting for permission to re-enter the training area. His eyes were calm, but his thoughts raced. The Shadowfang cub, now named Rook, paced restlessly inside, letting out low growls whenever anyone came close. Dr. Hensley stood beside Eli, holding a clipboard and watching him carefully. "We're going to observe everything this time," she said. "No surprises, no mistakes. If it reacts again, we shut it down immediately." Eli nodded. "It won't attack. It's just confused," she frowned. "Don't be so sure. That thing was bred for aggression, not affection." The gate hissed open, and Eli stepped inside. The moment he crossed the threshold, Rook froze. Its fur bristled, tail straight like a spear. "Easy," Eli said softly. "It's me." The cub sniffed the air, then slowly walked toward him. The audience watching behind the glass screens held their breath. When Rook reached him, it made a low, rumbling sound, then pressed its massive head against Eli's leg. Gasps filled the room. "Incredible," whispered one of the scientists. "It remembers him." Dr. Hensley recorded everything, her eyes flicking between the readings. "Heart rate steady," she muttered. "Adrenaline normal. This shouldn't be possible." Eli crouched, placing his hand on Rook's head. "You're okay," he whispered. "They're just watching." Rook blinked slowly, almost in response. But then the lights flickered. The hum of the electric fences stuttered for a second before stabilizing. The cub's ears twitched. "What's happening?" Eli asked, glancing around. Dr. Hensley's voice came over the intercom. "Power fluctuation. Backup generators running. Stay calm." But Rook wasn't calm. The creature's eyes turned from gold to a deep, glowing orange. It started growling again, pacing in circles. "It's scared," Eli shouted. "Shut down the alarms." Sirens had started blaring as a safety measure, and the noise echoed through the metal walls. The cub roared, jumping toward the sound, smashing its shoulder against the fence. Eli ran toward it. "Rook, stop! It's okay!" he yelled. The cub turned to him, breathing hard, and for a moment everyone thought it would attack again. Instead, it slammed its body against Eli, knocking him over, but then hid its face under his arm, trembling. "It's protecting itself," Eli said breathlessly. "Not attacking." Dr. Hensley, stunned, turned to her assistant. "It's using him for safety," she whispered. "Like a child." When the power stabilized, the alarms cut off, and silence filled the chamber again. Rook slowly calmed down, pressing close to Eli. "I told you," he said softly. "It's not a monster." The cub closed its eyes, and for the first time, the guards watching lowered their weapons. But Dr. Hensley wasn't convinced. Emotions or not, it's still dangerous, she said later in her office. Eli stood across from her, still covered in dirt and scratches. Everything is dangerous if you treat it like it's an enemy, he replied. She sighed. You're not a scientist, Turner. You don't know what this thing is capable of. No, he said, his tone sharp, but I know what fear looks like. And that cub was terrified. She studied him for a moment. Fine, she said finally. Tomorrow we'll do another test. I want to see if it reacts the same way without you. Eli frowned. That's a bad idea. It's the only way to confirm your theory, she said coldly. Be here at 600. The next morning, Eli stood behind the one-way glass as another handler, a tall man named Reeves, entered the enclosure. Reeves was confident, smiling at the cameras. I've handled predators twice this size, he said. This will be easy. Rook was pacing again, restless, its tail flicking. Remember, Dr. Hensley warned through the speaker, do not make sudden movements. Reeves nodded, stepping closer. Hey there, little guy, he said, voice calm. I'm not here to hurt you. But his eyes betrayed his nerves. The cub sniffed, its ears folding back. Eli pressed his hands against the glass. Back up, Reeves, he warned. You're standing in its blind spot. Reeves ignored him, taking another step. It's fine, he said with a forced smile. Then in a heartbeat, Rook lunged. The room erupted in chaos. Reeves fell back shouting. Tranquilize it! Someone screamed. But before the darts could fire, Eli burst through the side door. Hold fire! He yelled, sprinting toward them. The cub stood over Reeves, growling fiercely, but the moment it saw Eli, it froze. Eli slowed, raising his hands. Rook, it's okay, he said quietly. He's not going to hurt you. The cub's chest heaved, eyes glowing again, but this time it lowered its head and stepped back, allowing Reeves to crawl away. Dr. Hensley's voice crackled through the intercom. What just happened? Eli petted the cub gently. It wasn't attacking him, he said. It was warning him. He looked up at the glass. It reacts to fear. It can feel it. Reeves stood, shaking. That thing stared straight through me, he muttered. It knew I was scared. Later that night, the footage spread across the research network. Headlines popped up. Human calms apex predator with words. New discovery, emotional awareness in engineered species. Eli sat alone in the dim break room, watching the cub sleep through the monitor. Dr. Hensley entered quietly, holding 2 cups of coffee. The board wants to expand the experiment, she said. They want to test how deep this emotional link goes. Eli looked up. You mean you want to break it? She hesitated. We want to understand it. Sometimes, he said softly, understanding means leaving it alone. She stared at him for a long moment, then said quietly, You may have bonded with it, Eli, but remember this, it's still a weapon. Don't forget what it was made for. He looked at the screen again, where the cub lay, curled up peacefully. Maybe that's the problem, he said. We made it for war, but it chose peace. As he spoke, the power lights flickered again, and for a brief second, a shadow moved across the monitor, something large, something watching from the far side of the compound. Eli frowned. Did you see that? Dr. Hensley turned sharply. See what? The monitor steadied again, the cub still sleeping. But Eli couldn't shake the feeling that something out there had seen what happened, and didn't want it to continue. The silence stretched between them as he whispered to himself, Someone or something doesn't want this bond to exist. The hum of the lights filled the room, but the tension stayed thick in the air, as if the walls themselves were holding their breath. Waiting for what would happen next, rain poured over the steel roofs of the facility, tapping like 1,000 small hammers. The security lights flickered against the fog, painting everything in silver and shadow. Eli stood by the observation window, staring into Rook's enclosure. The cub was pacing again, restless, its glowing eyes following every drop that hit the glass. Something about tonight felt wrong. The air was heavy, tense, like the forest itself was holding its breath. Behind him, Dr. Hensley entered quietly, holding a tablet close to her chest. You haven't slept in 2 days, she said softly. Eli didn't turn. Neither has it, she sighed. You're too close to it. That bond you have, it's affecting your judgment. He looked over his shoulder, his voice steady. You think this is emotion clouding my mind? It's instinct. Something's making it nervous, and it's not me. Hensley walked closer, lowering her voice. You were right about one thing. It's reacting to something outside. We've been picking up strange signals near the perimeter fences. Movement heat patterns, but no life forms. Eli frowned. Could be scavengers, he said. She shook her head. No scavenger can jam our senses. She turned her tablet toward him, showing static-filled footage. This was taken an hour ago. Look, the video showed a tall, thin silhouette standing beyond the outer wall, unmoving, watching the facility. Then in a blink it disappeared. Eli's heart quickened. That's not a scavenger, he whispered. Suddenly, a deep growl echoed from the enclosure. Rook was standing on its hind legs, claws scraping the reinforced glass, staring directly toward the same direction as the figure. The alarms blared before Hensley could react. Red lights flashed. Perimeter breach! A voice shouted over the intercom. Sector 3, movement detected. Hensley grabbed her radio. Seal the lower gates. No one leaves until we confirm visual. She looked at Eli. Stay here. But he was already moving. Eli ran down the corridor toward the lower level, water dripping from his coat as he pushed through the emergency doors. The rain outside had turned into a storm, lightning flashing across the sky. When he reached the viewing deck, he saw them, 3 shadows moving along the outer wall. They weren't animals. They were men, dressed in black armor, moving with precision. Intruders, Eli muttered. He ducked behind a steel beam as one of them raised a device to the wall. A small pulse shot out, and the lights in the sector went dark. Back inside the control room, Dr. Hensley watched the monitors flicker to black. They cut power to Sector 3, she yelled. Her assistant's face went pale. Ma'am, they're near the containment wing. She froze. Rook, Eli sprinted toward the enclosure. The cub was roaring now, slamming itself against the gate, terrified. Easy, buddy, Eli said, breathless. I'm here. He tapped the access panel, but the security lock was dead. Systems offline, he muttered. Behind him, a door creaked open. One of the intruders stepped in, aiming a stun rifle at him. Step away from the cage, the man ordered. His voice was cold, mechanical. That creature belongs to us. Eli raised his hands. Us? Who are you? The man didn't answer. We're here for what you took, he said simply. Rook growled, pressing against the glass, sensing danger. Eli took a step back, his eyes darting toward the emergency lever on the wall. You can't take it, he said slowly. It's not yours. The man aimed higher. It was never yours either. Without warning, Eli slammed his elbow into the emergency release. The enclosure hissed as the locks disengaged. The man shouted, firing the rifle, but Rook burst out, slamming into him with a roar that shook the entire chamber. The rifle flew across the floor. Eli ducked behind a crate as 2 more intruders entered, their flashlights cutting through the rain and smoke. Contain the subject! One yelled. The cub pounced, knocking one man into the wall. Sparks flew from the broken wires above, lighting the scene in flashes of blue and red. Eli grabbed the fallen rifle, pointing it at the remaining attacker. Don't move, he shouted. The man hesitated, staring at the beast standing protectively in front of Eli. That thing isn't supposed to feel attachment, the man said, his voice shaking. It's a prototype. Eli's eyes widened. Prototype. You're from Project Echo. The man froze, realizing his mistake. You shouldn't know that, he said. And then he lunged. The rifle went off, the shot echoing through the metal halls. The man collapsed, clutching his shoulder. Dr. Hensley burst in moments later with security guards. What happened here? She demanded. Eli dropped the rifle. They weren't just thieves. They knew about the experiments. She stared at the bodies being dragged away. Impossible. Those files were destroyed. Eli looked down at Rook, who pressed its head against his hand, trembling. Then someone rebuilt them. Later, as the storm eased, Eli sat beside Rook's sleeping form in the dim enclosure. His clothes were torn, and blood stained his sleeve. Dr. Hensley stood outside the glass, her voice quieter now. You risked everything, she said. You released it. That could have killed you. Eli looked up, eyes tired but steady. It saved me. She hesitated, then stepped closer. You think it understands what it did? He nodded. It doesn't think like us, but it feels like us. That's enough. She was silent for a moment before asking, do you think it remembers them? The ones who made it? Eli shook his head. No, but they remember it. And now they're coming. That night, as the facility powered down for lockdown, the security cameras caught one last piece of footage, out in the rain. Far beyond the fences, the same tall silhouette stood watching. Its eyes glowed faintly in the dark. A faint voice came through the static of the intercom system, distorted but clear enough to send chills down every spine in the command center. We found what was lost, it said, and we're taking it back. Eli stood by the glass, his reflection merging with Rook's resting shape. He whispered, they think you're theirs, but you're not. Outside, thunder rumbled again, and for the first time, Eli realized this was only the beginning. The real danger wasn't the creature, it was the people who created it, and the secrets buried deep beneath the forest floor, waiting to wake. The wind howled through the trees outside the facility, bending them like thin metal rods. Inside, the power hummed low and steady, but no one could sleep. After the attack, guards now patrolled every corridor. The walls felt tighter, the air heavier. Eli sat in the dim observation room, staring at Rook through the glass. The cub was restless again, pacing in slow circles. Its fur bristled every few seconds, as if it could sense something beyond the walls. It hasn't eaten all day, said Dr. Hensley, stepping into the room. Her eyes were tired. It's scared, Eli said quietly. It knows they'll come back. She leaned against the wall, arms crossed. The board wants to transfer it to the capital facility. They say it's safer there. Eli turned to her sharply. You can't move it. It trusts me, not anyone else. It's not your pet, she said coldly. It's an asset. And after what happened, we can't take more risks. Eli sighed, rubbing his temples. If you take it away now, you'll break its trust completely. And if that happens, you won't be able to control it again. She didn't reply, but watched the cub quietly. You think it's more than an experiment, don't you? She asked softly. Eli met her eyes. I think it's alive in ways we don't understand. And I think whoever created it didn't just want a weapon. They wanted something that could replace us. Her face paled slightly. You're saying Project Echo wasn't about defense? No, Eli said. It was about evolution. Before she could answer, the alarms wailed again, short, sharp bursts this time. A voice echoed through the intercom, tense and fast. Unknown heat signatures near the forest perimeter. Multiple targets approaching. Hensley's face went white. It's them, she whispered. They found us. She rushed to the control panel. Seal every exit. Eli stood, grabbing his jacket. I'm going to the enclosure. Eli, don't! She shouted, but he was already gone. The corridors were chaos. Guards shouted, red lights flashed, and heavy boots thundered down the hallways. When Eli reached Rook's enclosure, the cub was growling low, pacing faster now. It's okay, buddy, Eli said, breathless. I'm here. The power flickered, and for a second, everything went dark. Then came the sound, metal bending, glass shattering. They're inside, a voice screamed over the radio. Eli slammed the emergency gate shut just as gunfire erupted outside. The walls shook from the impact of explosions. A group of black-armored intruders stormed the lower hallway, their visors glowing red. Find the subject, one shouted. Eli pressed himself against the door, his heart racing. Rook, hide, he whispered. But instead of hiding, the cub stepped closer, standing between him and the noise, its fur raised like spikes. Don't do this, Eli said, voice breaking. They'll kill you. The cub growled, eyes glowing a deep orange. They're not just after you, Eli continued. They want to destroy everything. Suddenly the main door burst open, and 3 men entered. Eli ducked behind the barrier as bullets ripped through the glass. Rook roared, a sound so deep it rattled the floor. One of the intruders raised a tranquilizer cannon, firing a dart. The cub dodged, leaping forward with terrifying speed, knocking him down. Sparks flew as their rifles hit the floor. The second man shouted, "Don't kill it!" The order is to capture. But it was too late. The cub had already pinned him, teeth bared. Eli ran forward, grabbing the cub's neck harness. "Stop, Rook, stop!" he shouted. The creature froze, panting hard, eyes locked on his. Slowly it stepped back, trembling. Dr. Hensley arrived moments later with armed guards. "Eli, what did you do?" she cried, staring at the bodies. "I saved it," he said, his voice cold. "And maybe us. You let it out again," she snapped. "You've lost control." "No," Eli said, pointing at Rook. "That's control." The cub stood silently beside him, chest heaving but calm. Before she could respond, an explosion shook the ground beneath them. Dust and fire burst from the lower hallway. "They've breached the lab," a guard shouted. Dr. Hensley looked horrified. "They're going after the data," she turned to Eli. "If they get those files, the whole world will know what we did." "Then destroy them," he said. "We can't," she whispered. "They're locked in the main server. It's offline, manual access only." Eli glanced at the corridor. "Then I'll go." She grabbed his arm. "You won't make it." He looked down at Rook, then back at her. "I won't be alone." They ran through the smoke-filled hallways, alarms wailing like sirens of doom. The smell of burning metal filled the air. Rook moved beside Eli, silent but alert, eyes scanning every shadow. When they reached the lab, they found 2 more intruders downloading data from the main console. "Stop!" Eli shouted, and turned, raising his weapon, but before he could fire, Rook pounced, knocking him through the glass wall. The other man reached for his gun, but Eli slammed into him, shoving him into the terminal. Sparks exploded as the system overloaded. "It's wiped!" Dr. Hensley yelled from behind. "You did it!" But victory was short-lived. Another explosion rocked the room. The ceiling groaned, metal beams twisting. "We have to go," Eli shouted. He turned toward Rook, but the cub was staring at something, one of the fallen intruders, still alive, whispering into his comm. "Target lost. Activating fallback." Before anyone could react, the entire power grid surged, and the alarms cut out. Everything went silent. Then came a low hum. "What's that sound?" Hensley whispered. The walls trembled. A deep mechanical noise echoed from beneath the floor, like something massive was waking up. Eli's eyes widened. "They didn't come just for the cub," he said. "They came to activate what's under us." A loud crash split the floor open. Steam and dust poured out as a hidden elevator rose from below, carrying a massive containment pod. Inside was something worse, a second creature twice the size of Rook, pale and scarred, its eyes burning white. "My God," Hensley breathed. "They built another one." The pod hissed open. The new beast stepped out, snarling, and for the first time even Rook backed away, growling in fear. Eli stood frozen, realizing the truth. Project Echo hadn't stopped at one experiment. It had created an army. The lights flickered again, and the emergency sirens wailed. "Eli!" Hensley screamed. "We have to get out now." But Eli didn't move. He looked at Rook, who stood trembling beside him. "We started this," he said quietly. "Now we have to end it." Rook turned toward the larger beast, its eyes glowing bright orange again. "Let's finish this, buddy," Eli whispered. And with that, the cub leapt forward into the smoke. As thunder and metal clashed in the dark, and the facility prepared to face the storm that had finally come for them, smoke filled the corridor, thick and choking. The lights flickered red as the floor shook under heavy impact. Eli ran through the broken hallway, dragging Dr. Hensley behind him. Behind them, alarms screamed and sparks rained down from shattered wires. "We can't outrun it," Hensley shouted. "That thing is faster than Rook." "We don't need to outrun it," Eli said, panting. "We just need to reach the core control room." Rook ran ahead, growling low, ears pinned back. Every few seconds, a distant roar echoed through the halls. The second creature was hunting them. Its deep growl vibrated through the steel walls like thunder. They reached the heavy blast doors at the end of the corridor. "It's locked!" Hensley yelled, typing furiously on the panel. "The system's fried." Eli slammed his hand against the wall, looking around desperately. "There's a manual override." He spotted the control lever high up near the ceiling. "Boost me up," he said. Hensley hesitated. "That thing's coming," she shouted. "Then we better hurry." Eli climbed onto a broken crate, stretching for the lever as Rook growled at the hallway, fur standing on end. The sound of metal claws scraping against the floor echoed closer and closer. Eli grabbed the lever and pulled it down with all his strength. The gears groaned, and the blast door opened halfway before jamming. "That's all I can get," he shouted. "Go!" Hensley crawled through the gap, her white coat streaked with soot. Rook slipped in next, but before Eli could follow, the floor behind him exploded. The massive pale beast burst through the smoke, roaring. Its body was covered in scars, its eyes glowing white like burning ice. It charged. Eli dove through the opening just as the beast slammed into the door, shaking the walls. The gap sealed shut, trapping it outside. For now, inside the control room, flickering monitors showed damage across the facility. Fires burned in multiple sectors, and the outer gates had collapsed. "They knew exactly where to hit," Hensley said breathlessly. "Whoever sent that creature, they planned this." Eli looked at the screens, jaw clenched. "They didn't just send it to kill. They sent it to erase the evidence." "Project Echo," she whispered. "They want it gone." Rook padded beside them, tail low, eyes darting between them nervously. Eli knelt, resting his hand on its back. "You're okay," he said softly. "You're not like it. You're not a monster." Before they could rest, the control room door shuddered again. A long metallic claw tore through the steel, screeching as it peeled the wall apart. "It's breaking through!" Hensley cried. Eli grabbed the emergency case from the wall and pulled out a plasma cutter. "Get behind me," he said. The door burst inward, sparks flying. The pale beast stepped through, smoke swirling around it. It was bigger than before, muscles rippling under its wet skin. Its eyes locked onto Rook. The cub growled low and steady. Eli could feel the tension in the air, thick and alive. "It's not after us," Eli whispered. "It's after him." The two creatures stared at each other like reflections, one dark, one light. Then, without warning, they charged. The room exploded with noise as they collided, claws slashing, teeth flashing. The sound was deafening, metal walls denting under their weight. Hensley ducked under a table, covering her head. Eli tried to pull her out, but a burst of flame from the damaged power lines cut them off. "We have to move," he shouted. "We can't leave them," she yelled. "They'll destroy each other." "Then let them," he said, grabbing her arm. "If Rook loses, we're dead anyway." They ran toward the maintenance tunnel. Behind them, the beasts crashed through glass and machinery. Rook was fast, but the pale creature was relentless, swiping with brutal force. Every impact sent tremors through the ground. "Eli!" Hensley shouted as they reached the end of the tunnel. "The lift's down!" He turned toward the service ladder. "Climb!" he ordered. She started up, hands shaking. Eli turned back once more. Rook had been slammed against the floor, yelping in pain. The pale beast lifted its claws for the final strike. "No!" Eli shouted, running forward. He grabbed a loose power cable and hurled it at the creature. Sparks erupted, electricity arcing through its body. It howled, convulsing violently. The air smelled of burnt metal and ozone. Rook stumbled to its feet, bleeding, growling weakly. "Come on!" Eli yelled, motioning toward the ladder. The cub limped forward as the pale creature fell, twitching but not dead. "Move!" he shouted again. Rook leapt up beside him, and together they climbed. Below, the creature stirred, eyes flickering back to life. "It's regenerating," Hensley gasped. "How do we stop it?" "We can't kill it," Eli said through gritted teeth. "But we can bury it." They reached the top floor and ran into the generator chamber. The massive fuel tanks hummed softly, their labels marked highly volatile. Eli turned to Hensley. "We overload the core," he said. "Blow the whole thing." She stared at him in horror. "That'll kill us all." "If that thing gets out, it'll kill everyone," he said firmly. "You know I'm right." For a long moment she said nothing. Then she nodded, tears glinting in her eyes. "What do you need me to do?" Together they worked quickly, rerouting the power lines and disabling the safety locks. The floor below rumbled as the creature climbed higher, tearing through the structure. "Almost there," Eli said. When I give the signal, run for the escape tunnel. Hensley hesitated. What about you? Someone has to trigger it manually, he said. Go! She shook her head, voice breaking. You can't go! He shouted, pulling the last fuse. She turned and ran, tears streaming down her face. Rook stayed beside Eli, refusing to leave. You stubborn thing, he whispered. The sound of metal twisting filled the air as the pale beast crashed through the ceiling, eyes blazing. Eli looked up, smiling faintly. You lose. He slammed the switch. The explosion was deafening. Fire erupted through the facility, tearing through walls and swallowing everything in blinding light. The shockwave ripped through the forest, sending birds scattering into the night sky. From miles away, the blast looked like a rising sun. Hours later, when rescue teams arrived, they found the facility in ruins, nothing but twisted steel and smoking ash. Dr. Hensley sat on the edge of a broken wall, staring at the crater. A faint sound came from the debris, a low whimper. Her eyes widened. No, she whispered. She ran toward it, digging through the rubble until she saw movement. A black paw, trembling, pushed through the ash. Rook crawled out, covered in dust, eyes glowing weakly. You're alive, she whispered, tears falling. But Eli was nowhere to be found. Only his broken radio remained beside the cub, still crackling with faint static. Then a small voice came through the speaker, Eli's voice, calm but fading. If you're hearing this, it means we made it count. Protect the cub. Don't let them start this again. The signal cut off, leaving only silence. Hensley knelt beside Rook, stroking its fur gently. I promise, she whispered. The cub looked up at the burning horizon, letting out a soft, mournful cry that echoed through the ruins. As the dawn rose over a world that would never be the same again, rain fell softly over the blackened ruins of the facility. The fires had long gone out, leaving only smoke curling into the pale dawn. Dr. Hensley stood at the edge of the crater, her coat torn, her hands trembling. Around her, soldiers and rescue crews moved carefully, scanning the debris for survivors. Nothing yet, one of the rescuers said quietly. The blast destroyed everything below level 3. Hensley nodded but didn't speak. Her eyes were fixed on the one living thing that had crawled out of the destruction. Rook. The cub lay weak and silent beside her, its once bright eyes dim and tired. He saved you, whispered the rescuer. She looked down, brushing her fingers gently over Rook's soot-stained fur. No, she said softly. He saved all of us. As the hours passed, Hensley sat under a half-collapsed roof, wrapping a blanket around Rook to keep him warm. The rain washed away the ashes around them, revealing small pieces of twisted metal, remains of Project Echo's secrets. You can rest now, she whispered. It's over. But deep down she wasn't sure it was. Something about the silence bothered her. No birds, no insects, just the endless hum of wind. Then through the static of a broken radio, a faint sound crackled. Dr. Hensley, said a voice. Her heart jumped. She grabbed the device. Who is this? Identify yourself. The signal was weak, distorted. This is Captain Reeve. Scouting perimeter. Found something in the valley. We're not alone. The radio cut out with a sharp hiss. She looked toward the mist-covered tree line. Stay here, she told Rook, standing up. The cub gave a soft growl, as if protesting. I'll be back, she promised. Grabbing a flashlight, she followed the narrow path down the slope. The air grew colder with every step. Strange marks lined the ground, deep claw prints too large to be Rook's. She stopped, kneeling to touch one. It was fresh. Her breath caught. No, she whispered. A low sound echoed through the fog, something between a growl and a mechanical hum. The trees shifted ahead. Who's there? She shouted, raising the light. A shadow moved. For a moment she thought it was the pale creature from before. But when the figure stepped closer, her heart froze. Eli, she gasped. He stood at the edge of the clearing, covered in dirt and blood, his clothes burned and torn. His eyes looked strange, darker, unfocused. You're alive, she breathed, running toward him. But he didn't move. Stay back, he said quietly, his voice hoarse. What happened to you? She asked. The blast. It should have... He shook his head slowly. It didn't. It changed me. Her hands trembled. What do you mean? Eli looked at his palms. Under his skin, faint orange light pulsed like embers. The energy from the core, it merged with the nanites in my bloodstream. From the experiments, he looked up at her, his expression full of fear. I can feel everything, the air, the ground, even Rook's heartbeat. But I'm not human anymore. She stepped closer, voice breaking. That's not true, he smiled sadly. You always said Project Echo was about evolution. I think we just proved it. Before she could answer, a sound like thunder rolled across the valley. The ground shook beneath their feet. From behind the hills, several dark shapes rose, massive, metallic, and alive. Hensley's stomach turned cold. No, she whispered. There were more. Eli nodded grimly. They weren't sleeping. The explosion woke them. The shapes moved closer, glowing eyes cutting through the fog. We have to get Rook out of here, she said. Eli glanced back toward the facility ruins. It won't matter. They'll hunt him. He's the last of their kind who can resist control. The machines descended into the valley, their movements smooth and deliberate. Eli turned to her. You need to take Rook and go north. There's an old outpost in the cliffs. You'll be safe there, she shook her head. You're coming with us. He smiled faintly. No, I can stop them, or at least delay them. You can't fight those things alone, she shouted. I have to, he said. I can feel their signal. They're linked to the same system inside me. I can use it. She stepped forward, tears in her eyes. Eli, please don't do this. He reached out, brushing his hand gently against her arm. Take care of him. He's the future we were supposed to protect. Before she could stop him, Eli turned and walked into the fog. His body glowed faintly, lines of light spreading through his skin. Eli, she screamed, but he didn't look back. The machines advanced, and a blinding light erupted as Eli raised his hands. The valley exploded in white fire. The shock wave threw Hensley to the ground. For a long moment, everything went silent. Then the light faded. The machines were gone. Nothing remained in the valley but burning ash. Hours later, Hensley and Rook stood at the cliffside, watching smoke rise in the distance. He did it, she whispered. The cub pressed its head against her hand, eyes reflecting the faint glow of dawn. We'll keep his promise, she said softly. No more cages. No more experiments. Rook let out a soft growl, as if agreeing. As the sun rose higher, Hensley looked one last time at the valley below. In the ashes, something shimmered faintly, a small metal tag half buried in the dirt. She picked it up, brushing off the soot. It was Eli's ID badge, scorched but intact. Etched beneath his name was a new line, burned into the metal by heat. Humanity's evolution is not domination, it's compassion. She smiled through her tears. Years later, stories spread about a scientist and a strange creature who roamed the northern mountains, protecting lost travelers and keeping the wild safe. Some said it was a myth. Others claimed they saw a black-furred beast walking beside a man made of light. Whatever the truth was, one thing remained certain. The world had changed that night. The line between human and creation had blurred forever, and in that fragile balance between man and beast, something new was born. Something that proved that even at the edge of extinction, compassion could still rewrite the laws of survival, and perhaps save what was left of humanity